Hello, welcome back to the Wells Family Journey. Today I'm going to read another chapter in the book Ghosts Among Us, written by Leslie Rule. So, if you follow through with the introduction in my last video, I'll be going on to chapter 1 in this video. Alright, welcome back to the Wells Family Journey. We're going to continue on reading Ghosts Among Us. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is entitled Spirits of Seattle. Let me begin this book in the place it began for me, Seattle. And let me start as it started for me. It was a dark and stormy night. Seriously. I was born in the Virginia Mason Hospital on Seattle's haunted Capitol Hill. The night I made my entrance, the hospital lost its power in a storm. I was welcomed into the world by the wind moaning at the windows and by the black, leafless trees that danced and creaked in the storm outside. Technically, things began earlier with William Rule and Anne Stackhouse. It was the haunted campus of the University of Washington where my parents met in creative writing class. Certainly, they were not thinking of me when their eyes met for the first time. They did not guess that they would be married and that their second daughter would grow up to be an author and write books about ghosts that included a chapter on that very campus. But that is exactly what happened, though a few other things happened first. On a spooky February night, I came into this world and would not stop screaming. As the doctors and nurses passed me around and tried to quiet me, my mother reached out her arms and said, "Give her to me." They did, and I stopped crying immediately. If you are one of the loyal readers of my mother's true crime books, she has over 20 million books in print, you might be saying, well, of course you stopped crying. It was Anne Rule, for God's sakes. I have to laugh at that because she wasn't a famous author then. She was a housewife and a mother whose lifelong dream of being a policewoman had been cut short when she was drummed off the force because of her poor vision. This book is not really about me and my mother, but we will both play a minor role in some of the following stories. As those of you who read Coast to Coast Ghosts may recall, my mother is the woman who raised me in a haunted house. To top that, she introduced me to a serial killer when I was 14. Of course, she did not know he was a killer at that time. The only ones who knew were his victims, and they were gone. This tragic episode, too, will play a part in this book. If you are in the impatient sort, you may skip ahead to chapter 15. As for the rest of you, let me introduce you to haunted Seattle. Phantoms of the Pike Place Public Market. She sat on her bed, her face pale and her lower lip trembling. I saw her again today. She told me, "Did you see her?" "No," I replied, as I wondered what could be so frightening that would have the 17-year-old girl shaking with fear. "But you went to the market today," she said, and sounded almost angry as she demanded, "How could you not have seen her?" "I don't know," I replied. "I looked for her, but I didn't see anyone who looked like that." The terrified girl beside me had once again seen an unusual old woman at Pike Place Public Market. A woman she described so evil that it scared her to talk about it. It was the mid-1970s, and we had no idea we were talking about a ghost. But that gnarled elderly woman she had seen dead for a very long time. 20 years would pass before I put two and two together and realized that she had seen a famous Seattle spirit. I first learned the Pike Place Public Market was haunted when I began researching ghosts in 1995. I was poring over old articles at the Seattle Public Library when I stumbled across a story about ghosts and that very market. When I read the description of one of the more frequently seen apparitions, I about fell off the chair. It described the old woman who had frightened Belinda. Though I rarely use a case where a witness won't let me use his or her name, I am including this one here, as I play a role in it. The person I call Belinda is very close to me, and she has made me promise to never mention her in my writing. In fact, she is still so terrified by her experience at that market. She would not allow me to speak to her about it. Respecting her wishes, I will say only that she is a little older than I and that we saw each other daily during the 1970s. The Pike Place Public Market overlooks Puget Sound in downtown Seattle. It is the house in an elongated structure with uneven floors and a long corridor shooting off in all directions. It smells of fish, incense, and the indefinable scent of times past. The upper level is filled with farmers who peddle fish produce and artists who showcase handmade wares such as leather belts, pottery, and stained glass kaleidoscopes. The Pike Place Fish Market, famous because strong young men throw the fish to customers, dominates a corner. Street musicians are tucked into the alcoves and their music is ever present. Long ramps and wide staircases lead down to two lower levels where specialty and antique shops are permanently housed. When I was a teenager, the market was a hippie hangout, and my friends and I went there to buy things like strobe candles, beaded earrings, and black light posters. My peers wore patchouli oil, a peculiar sharp scent, so popular among young people that the smell pervaded the market. It was during this time that Belinda, our friends, and I often took our ride on the city bus to downtown Seattle, where we could hang out at the market or ride the ferry boats. It was during her trips alone there that Belinda saw the old woman and described her as an Indian, a term that was not considered politically incorrect at the time, with sharp dark eyes that seemed to pierce Belinda's soul. She was an extremely old, toothless woman who appeared to be a century old. Her shoulders were draped with a shabby shawl, and her appearance was always accompanied by her overwhelming, pungent odor of decay. During one encounter, she spoke to Belinda, mumbling something incoherent. "I think that's a witch," Belinda told me. It was like she was putting a spell on me. I looked for the old woman every time I strode through the market. To my frustration, and Belinda's, I never saw her. Belinda could not understand it. She was always there, she said. How could you not see her? I was perplexed, extremely curious about the old woman. I had scrutinized every level of the market, searching for her. I wanted to see for myself what Belinda found so frightening. I now have the answer. The old woman was not a witch. She was a ghost. Over the years, many people have reported seeing her and say that they realized she was not of this world, only when she evaporated before their eyes. The consensus is that the ghost is that of Angeline, the daughter of Chief Self, for whom Seattle is named with a fractured spelling and pronunciation. Angeline lived in an unheated shack that was located where the market is now. She died in May 1896, an elderly woman of unknown age. She became a favorite subject of a local photographer who paid her $1 for each shot he took of her. Archival photographs show her digging for clams and laden with the hand-woven baskets she peddled. Evil? Nothing I have read indicates that Angeline Seath was evil. When Belinda felt the sensation of evil, it is possible that was simply a warning. As a result of their encounters, Belinda never returned to the market. Perhaps the feeling of evil came from the fact that Belinda was peering into the other side. Some Christians, like Belinda, believe that ghost encounters are spiritually dangerous. When it comes to the paranormal, no one has the answers, and we must consider the possibility that Belinda did encounter something evil. Perhaps the apparition she saw was not Angeline, but someone or something that we don't want to think about. Is the ghost still there? I recently gave a talk at a high school, and I asked the kids if any of them had ever seen a ghost. A boy raised his hand and admitted he had seen something at the Pike Place Public Market. It was an old Native American woman, he said, explaining that she vanished before his eyes. When I told the kid that he was not the first to see a ghost, he appeared genuinely surprised. He had not heard that the Pike Place Public Market was haunted. Opened in 1907, the market has had plenty of time to gather ghosts. In addition to Angeline, other apparitions seen there include a little blonde boy who Other apparitions seen there include a little blonde boy who dashes past witnesses and a teenage boy of color. Who are they? I have yet to identify the source for the little boy, but wonder if the teenager could be a sailor who died at the market in the 1940s. A retired detective remembered the incident. "That area was my beat," he said to me. A sailor who was walking on a sky bridge there and fell to his death. No one knew if the sailor's death was an accident. The sky bridge was later removed in a remodel. The same detective remembered an eccentric market security guard who was also found dead there after a fall. The guard was notorious for climbing over walls and taking risky shortcuts. You never know when he would come popping over a wall. The detective remembered, perhaps he is still patrolling the Pike Place Public Market, keeping the other ghosts in line. More market ghosts. Sheila Lyon, a co-owner of the Market Magic Shop for decades, has the inside scoop of the ethereal beings who roam the market. Fellow shop owners have shared so many of their ghostly encounters with her that she now runs the Haunted Market Ghost Tour, which she gives weekly from October through May. And let me point out that this book was written back in 2004. Okay. According to Sheila, the owner of the market's bead shop was long plagued by two ghosts seen frequently in the store: a Native American woman and a little blonde boy. She hired a shaman to release their spirits, said Sheila. The paranormal activity immediately ceased at the bead shop, but the spirits apparently didn't travel far, for odd things began to happen at the Wisdom Marionette store. The owners would come in the morning and find the marionettes moved around as if someone had been playing with them. She said, explaining that the activity continued until the shop moved. Sheila says that other paranormal phenomena at the market include a pole that is icy cold no matter how hot the day, frequent reports of an eerie lullaby echoing throughout the market. It is believed to be the ghost of the fat lady barber who worked there years ago, who was notorious for lulling her patrons to sleep with her singing so she could pick their pockets. Sightings of a dapper dancing man who wears a double-breasted suit. They go back to the World War II era. The ladies who worked the swing shift at the Boeing used to go to the dime a dance at the market after work. And Sheila, I've spoken to her 3 different women who remember dancing with the ghost, and they all described him the exact same way. For information on the haunted market ghost tour, email Sheila Lyon at sheila@speakeasy.net. Okay. Legendary among locals as a haunted house, the Georgetown Castle looks the part. The 1889 turreted stone home in Georgetown, in the outskirts of Seattle, wears the years of spooky apathy. Over the last several decades, the private residences' stories have been presented on TV in Seattle, newspapers, and with occupants quoted on a most disturbing encounter. Witnesses insist they've seen the ghost of a tall old woman in a long white dress who chokes herself as her eyes burn with horror. Legend says she is the granddaughter of the house's builder and lost her mind when her baby was killed. The story goes that the child was born out of wedlock and that her lover murdered it and buried it beneath the back porch. The ghost of a woman in a raincoat is reportedly seen at the University of Washington's Suzlo Library. While some say that the ghost story is a hoax, others insist that the tall, slender apparition appears at closing time and is seen headed towards the stacks. When the library employees follow her to let her know that the library is closing, she is nowhere to be found. All that is left is the hollow sound of her footsteps hitting the floor. The sound grows fainter, as if she is walking away. The Harvard Exit Theater on Capitol Hill is also thought to be home of the ghost of the Emerald City's first mayor, Bertha Landis, elected in 1926 at the age 57. Mayor Landis is remembered for a successful fight of corruption in Seattle. Over the years, numerous witnesses have reported seeing the apparition of a woman dressed in 1920s fashion, who floats several feet above the floor. Some report the ghost disappears into walls. Many assume the spirit belongs to the former mayor because she was a member of the Women's Century Club, the first organization to occupy that brick building. The Harvard Exit Theater is popular for the artsy and independent films shown there, as well as for the spectacular lobby. The grand piano, sparkling chandelier, and 1920s decor may very well beckon to a spirit from that era. And the Harvard Exit Theater is located at 807 East Roy Harvard in Seattle, Washington, zip code 98102, with a telephone number area code 206-781-5755. And thank you for my reading of A Ghost Among Us, written by Leslie Rule, and that was chapter 1. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe for future videos and more chapters from A Ghost Among Us, written by Leslie Rule. Don't forget to be kind to each and everybody. Love one another, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Wells Family Channel. I hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I will be bringing you chapter 2 very soon. I hope to be publishing each chapter on a weekly basis, so hopefully by Thursday, Friday, I will have chapter 2 of Ghost Among Us ready for your viewing pleasure and your listening ears. Y'all have a good day. Thank you very much.